Well, today I want to make for you some artisan bread. I learned this over the holiday season, how to make fresh bread, and it is so good, so easy, and it just has such a different taste to know that you can make homemade fresh bread right from your oven. You know how old it is and you know how fresh it is. And so I'm going to go through the process with you. The ingredients that you're going to need to be able to make the artisan bread are active yeast, dry yeast. You're going to need about 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast. And you'll need 1 teaspoon of salt, just regular table salt or kosher salt. I'm going to add sugar to my bread, and I'm going to put 1/4 cup of just sugar. And then for the flour, you're going to need 3 cups of flour, and I'm using the unbleached bread flour. This is King Arthur flour, and it seems to work very well in creating the bread. To add a little savory, a little taste and moistness to the bread, I'm going to add extra virgin olive oil, and I would say about a tablespoon of that in the bread. And then you also going to add water. You need 1.5 cups of water, warm water, in the bread. The dough has been resting for the last 3 hours, and it has risen. You can see that it has rise, and I'm taking off the plastic here, and this is how it looks. The yeast has been activating. You can see the bubbles and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it out here, put some flour down, and then I'm going to put the dough in the pot. But before I do that, I'm going to heat up the pot for 30 minutes. The pan is going to be in the oven for 30 minutes on 450, and then we will go from there. And I'm going to be using a pot that I have here, stainless steel pot, because I don't have a Dutch oven. And you can use a stainless steel pot that doesn't have any, that can stand 450 degrees, right? So let me show you how I'm doing this. I do not have a Dutch oven, but what I do have is this stainless steel pot that can go into the oven on high temperatures. So I'm going to put on the oven on 450 degrees and place this pot in the oven for 30 minutes. Now I lost the cover of the pot, so I have this you know, you have to be creative. I have this pie pan that I'm going to use as a cover, and it's going to be hot. So it covers and it works very well until I'm able to get the Dutch oven, which I'm looking for. But this is good for those who do not have a Dutch oven. You can also bake the artisan bread in a stainless steel pot that can handle 450 degrees. So that is what I'm going to do now, is to put on the oven, and I'm going to put it on at 450. Yep, so it's on at 450. The dough has been resting for the second time for 30 minutes, and so what I'm going to do is, you can see that it's gotten a little more fluffier here. I'm going to take this off, the saran wrap off, and we have here it sitting in the parchment paper. And what I'm going to do is try to score it. Now, my knife is not the sharpest, but what one needs to do is score it. Score the dough. And that will help to release some of the air pockets. You just have to just kind of score it like this. And that will help to release any of the air gases and the air pockets. At least that's what they say. So I've scored it. And the pot is hot, and it has been in the oven here for 30 minutes. So I've just dropped the dough into the pot, and I'm going to put my cover back on it and then push it back. Makeshift cover. I've just removed the bread from the oven. I had it in the oven for 30 minutes covered, and then another 15 minutes or 10 minutes or so uncovered, and this is the way that it's turned out so far. So now I'm going to take it out of the pot and put it here to cool, and then after about 10-15 minutes we can slice it and taste it. So I took it out of the pot, and this is what it looks like. And it is going to sit here and cool. Let me see if I can pick this up with one hand so that you can see what the bottom looks like. That's what it looks like at the bottom. I kept it a little bit long, but it'll have a nice hard crusty crust, and it's just going to be delicious to eat. So that's the artisan bread. So, yeah, well, tell us a little bit about, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, Francesca, for those who don't know you. And you could tell them about your farm and how you got started with farming. Um, you started in your garden and so forth. And just give us a little background info on Francesca. Welcome.
Well, I'm Francesca, and I'm from the big state of Minnesota. And so, for me to be growing or think of anything in the garden, it seems kind of foolish at this time of the year. But I'm like, I'm going to try it and see what happens. And because it was kind of like one of them things. I'm like, I'm going to try growing more of my own and saving seeds. And instead of buying seeds, I'm going to take my own that from my garden and just try to preserve them so I can produce things. And by God's help, things have been blossoming and doing imaginably well. My
Mhm.
husband is a magnificent help as well because he pollinates them. He sits there with his little electric toothbrush and pollinates all my flowers for me. And so I got a busy bee plus I got my green thumb. So we're doing
Yeah.
good.
So this has become
And
a family project, huh?
it has, and it's just a delight. I have to share them with you because here's some of the fruit right now,
Oh,
as you all can
wow.
see. I have three there, and then you know, I have another couple here that are starting. Right. Let's see if I can find it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I have a lot of fruit that's coming on. And
Hmm.
it's they're indeterminate, so they just keep growing and growing and growing. But
Wow.
it's such a delight. It really truly is. You
Hmm.
know.
So
And
how
now
many
my next
plants do you have?
I only have three.
Wow.
Yeah.
They look like a whole lot. It looks like you have at least six there.
Well, let's see. What I got to end up doing is I'm going to end up having to pluck or cut these suckers off and replant them, so I
Uh-huh.
can get more fruit because I got a lot of them that are just shooting off and yeah, deciding that they think they need to come growing too. So I'm like, well, if they're going to grow, I'm going to plant them. I'm going to cut
Yeah.
them off and plant them.
So how are you going to plant them? Because they're part of the stem already.
Right. So I cut them off and then I dip them in some root accelerator powder. And then when I do that, then I wait till I see some roots coming. And once
Hmm.
I see some roots coming, then I go ahead and plant them in the dirt. But I put the root powder on them and then put them in water for a while, like I said, until I see them first roots.
Hmm.
And who knows what's going to happen? I'm pretty excited because I got a head start here in February in Minnesota, and it's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
My mint, I this is my mint.
Hmm.
I've started some mint, and
Hmm.
then I transplanted one that started coming too. So I got a pot there I'm working on. I mean, I'm a big fan of mint tea, so
Hmm.
I'm experimenting and see what I can come up with that.
Oh,
But
that's good. So you just with the tomatoes, because you showed me the seeds. How did you get
yeah.
to seeds? How did that start? How did it start from the beginning? Hey, Darlene, how are you, Darlene? Darlene is there.
Well, what I did is I actually took a tomato that I had grown in my garden, a Amish paste tomato, which
Hmm.
makes the best meatiest sauce ever. And I cut it and I took out, there wasn't very many seeds in them, but there wasn't a few. And so the few seeds that I did get out, I put them on a paper plate and I let them sit there for a while, like 2 days, 3 days. And after they fermented, then I sat there and then I put them in water for a while just to, kind of clean them off a little bit.
Hmm.
And after I cleaned them off, I put them back on the plate to dry. And
Hmm.
once they're dry, that's the picture you see of them drying. And some
Hmm.
of them were starting to sprout. I don't know, you might have to look closely at the picture, but
Yeah.
some of them were starting to sprout.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, if they're sprouting already, I got to get them in the ground. They're just begging me. They're like, come on, plant me, plant me. So I said, all right, you're going in the ground. I grabbed
Yeah.
some soil from my garden and I
Uh-huh.
put it in 5-gallon buckets so that it would warm up. And
Hmm.
after I did that, then I put them, like I said, started putting them in actually just little tiny little pots I started with. And then from there, I ended up putting them in ice cream buckets because they were outgrowing my little pots fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after I did that, they've been taken off now since. And it's a light, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited because like I said, in Minnesota, we normally have like lots and lots of snow.
Yeah.
And so for not to have much snow this year, it's just like, well, this has been an interesting year for us here in Minnesota. And so I might as well start thinking about my garden. And I told my husband, I can't wait because I want to get in there and start tilling. And he's like, oh no, because it's so early, but I'm just so excited because
Yeah.
it's just such a wonderful time to see the fruit that the work of our labor going to use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just a fascinating thing, that just like a child, you love and you nurture and you care for it, just as
Mm-hmm.
you would these plants, and they become a part of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And so
because you
it's
watch them and then they're producing for you too. They're
mm-hmm.
actually starting to fruit, and you could see the process as
Good.
well. And how are your children feeling about it?
Oh, they're excited. They
Mm-hmm.
can't wait to eat that fresh tomato. They're just like, just having that besides the store is going to be so much better
Oh,
because of the
definitely.
effort that we put into it.
Yes, yes, yes.
On the bed
Yeah.
and not raising. Okay. And so he's telling me my pizza dough ain't raising, but it is. It's hiding under its cloth, so,
Oh, yeah.
but,
So you have
it's,
you that would be good. You will have the tomato sauce. You can make a little
yep,
sauce with it, and with your dough that you're making, with your
right.
bread, you can make your pizza dough bread,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be nice. Fresh pizza from with
Yep.
fresh dough. That's
Yep, and that's
good.
all I do is everything. 99% of my stuff is homemade or from scratch, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't follow a certain recipe or a rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like a little bit of this and a little
A
bit
little
of
bit.
that, and pray that it turns out and that it's going to be pleasing to everybody's palate. If not, well, then I
Mhm.
know it's not. That recipe is not for the books. That one
Yeah,
has to be thrown out. And
yeah.
the other thing I
And
would
then
like to share, I don't know
mhm.
if anyone got to see this before, is my
Oh,
lettuce.
okay, good. Mhm.
That was the other
Yes.
thing I
So
started.
how did you start the lettuce?
This is actually from them things you get in the store, the romaine.
Uh-huh.
I cut the core off, and then I put it in water. It's my own hydroponic way of growing, you
Yes.
know. And
Hmm.
now I got to get root accelerator on these so that I can put them in the dirt as well, and then I can harvest now lettuce as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You
That's
know, and it's
beautiful. Last year, that was one of my goals, was to really make sure that I'm utilizing the food that I'm making, that I'm producing, that I'm not just producing all of this food, which I have a lot
right.
of pumpkins, but
I
I'm
still have a
actually
lot of
exciting.
pumpkins from the seeds that you gave me a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
I still got many of them.
Yes, I
And
know.
and they still are good. So I'm like,
They
I
are
saved the
good.
seeds. They're in my pumpkins yet.
Yes, yes. Those
And
pumpkins are very good. I have my pumpkin. I have a whole box full in another area, and they have not spoiled. They taste
yeah.
delicious. My husband would make soup. He'll go and he'll put it in, and it,
Mm.
it has such a nice. The particular ones that he picks has such a nice buttery taste to them.
Oh, sure.
It has a nice texture, and then it
Hmm.
softens up really well, making
Yep.
adding like thickness to the soup, making it
Oh,
really
sure.
really good.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
There
Well,
was a
all
point.
the kids know these as Catherine's pumpkins too, because whenever we have them, they're like, "That's Catherine's pumpkin." I'm like, "Yes, it is. We gotta treasure these beauties." They come
Well,
all the way from Boston, so they're a prized heirloom in our house.
yes, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Um, but I was listening to one of the YouTubers on, and he was talking about his garden and starting a garden from scratch. That's what he called it, and he was saying that he started to save his seeds also. And he was describing
Mhm.
how there was this article from a particular university, and they were talking about the old ways of farming and how they would dig up the dirt, and it's not, they would use pesticides and other chemicals and so forth, and say
Mhm.
that the backyard gardeners, they should stop gardening. And I'm like, what? I see he was saying no. He was saying that this was coming from the universities. Of course, that was big pharma and the big companies wanting to discourage people from gardening, because the gardening has multiplied. People are trying to find ways to grow their own food since 2020, with the pandemic coming on. That the
Mhm.
pandemic caused everyone to have to stay home, and what did they all decide to do as a national
Yeah.
pastime? Garden.
Yeah.
And then gardening has been so therapeutic. And we find that gardening is also something that brings in the family. Everyone else is able to, like how you said, your husband, the children, everyone now gets to participate in the process and enjoy the garden.
Mhm.
And so,
It's a team effort for sure.
yeah, it is a
You know,
team.
everybody has their certain part. You know, when we do the sauce, like the pasta sauce,
Uh-huh.
there's always who's going to run. I have a old, it's called I believe it's a Johnny Appleseed sauce maker.
Oh.
And so, they get to, whoever gets to come and help, who's going to run the crank to juice the tomatoes and the vegetables that I put in the sauce.
Uh-huh.
There's always but something for everybody to do in the family as far
Uh-huh.
as with the garden, whether it's planting, weeding, just gathering the harvest.
Uh-huh.
Each one of my kids have a certain row that is their row, and they have to be diligent about, hey, okay, this is my row. I need to make sure it's watered. I need to make sure it's weeded, which
Uh-huh.
watering ain't such an issue because we use drip line irrigation here.
Uh-huh.
And the water we get is the water that runs off of our barn and into our milk tank. And
Mm.
then from the rain. And so then our plants get rainwater. And when it doesn't rain, we have to use well water. But
Uh-huh.
99% of the time we're pretty fortunate. We'll get a little rain here and there, and
Uh-huh.
that really helps them plants just thrive, not just
Oh,
survive, but
yes.
thrive.
Right, yeah. They love the natural rainwater.
So I don't use chemical in my garden. I only
Uh-huh.
use all natural things. The fertilizer is from my animals, and the
Uh-huh.
stuff that I dust when I have like I want to, like, not rodents necessarily because I don't necessarily deal with them, but like insects and other bugs that
Uh-huh.
are eating on them. I
Uh-huh.
don't like to use a lot of that stuff. So what I use is
Uh-huh.
a thing called diatomaceous earth food grade, and I
Uh-huh.
can get that pretty reasonable at a local farm and feed store here. And then I can dust my plants with that because that stuff is such a natural thing, and not only it helps the plants, but it also, it will kill that bug
Uh-huh.
because it'll break its exoskeleton down, but it'll also put so much more into that soil that it's missing too. I
Uh-huh.
use that diatomaceous earth on my chickens,
Okay.
and help them. So I mean, it's just one of them things that I really, like I said, find great joy in, and knowing I
Uh-huh.
can put something forth that's going to not only be good for me, but for my family and maybe people who ever come into my home as well, that they're not ingesting some bioengineered, chemically altered food. It's
Yes.
God altered, I guess, if you would want to call it that, because He's the
Yeah,
one that's
yeah.
doing all the changing.
Yes, that is what the YouTuber was saying. And he was saying
Hmm.
that we, instead of being discouraged about gardening, that we need to pursue it. And so that's one of the reasons why I was saying to have a vision. And you are really
Hmm.
speaking to your vision. Now you have purpose for gardening. That's why
Yeah.
now you have the joy of gardening. You're ready to go out there and garden. It's not like, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to get started? Instead, now you're already seeing your vision of what you expect, and you expect to have a luscious, fruitful garden, because you've already called it fruitful February because of
Hmm.
your tomatoes. You already see the vision, and vision
Hmm.
gives you purpose, gives you energy, gives you passion. Now you have the passion to go ahead and do the gardening. And when the hard times, the hard parts come of the digging and the waiting and the watering and all the
Hmm.
other processes come, it doesn't matter. It's almost like being pregnant. You go through this whole process of having this, being pregnant and so forth, and it could be painful at times. But when you think of the end product, the fact that you're going to produce this child, you're willing to
Mhm.
go through the process. It's almost the same thing with our loving tomato plants that
Yes.
your little babies that you're
Okay.
caring
Okay.
for and so forth.
Yeah, and it's comical too because, like, I transplanted last year. I had 6 zucchini plants. My son had started, and there was some that grew in a spot where I didn't want them to grow, that were volunteers from last year, and I moved them to a different area. And I watered them and I tended to them and I cared for them. And I thought, if you make it, great. If you don't, that's fine too, because I got 6 other plants. Wouldn't you know, all 9 of them made it. So I had over 15 zucchini plants in
Oh
my
my
garden.
goodness.
Zucchini coming out of my ears. So it's like, everybody lock your doors. Francesca's coming. Watch out. You never know what you're going to find in your car, because, oh, I had so much.
Did they grow?
But
Did they grow like the Bam Bams? Did they grow?
oh, they were quite clubs, let me tell you, because yeah, it was just so many. But I've learned so many different recipes and things to use with them that it's like,
Yes, good.
now I freeze a lot of it and I
Hmm.
use it in my pasta sauce as well. So I mean,
Yes.
I'm finding other alternatives to deal with my oversupply. And when I do get enough for my family put away, I end up giving away to certain people, whoever come in my yard and want to
Hmm.
visit or whatever, get eggs, because I do sell eggs for my
Hmm.
chickens. And so I'm like, hey, by the way, would you like a zucchini with you? And there you go. You got your breakfast, your lunch, and your supper all ready for you. So
All in one. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
any way I
Some.
can bless people with the produce, it makes
Mhm.
me happy, because then I'm doing my part in making sure that no one goes hungry, you
Yes.
know? And
Hmm.
that's what God has been speaking to my life about,
Hmm.
is feeding the people, not just
Mm.
spiritually, which is very, very important, as we all know,
Hmm.
but also physically feeding them, giving
Hmm.
them a packet of seeds, giving them a plant, and
Hmm.
saying, here you go, and now they can bring that meal to their table and
Mm.
share that with their family, their friends, their neighbors,
Hmm.
whomever. And then
Hmm.
it just brings that joy back into the home where it needs to be,
Hmm.
and then it can, like I said, spread elsewhere, which is really cool for me. I love knowing that people are planting those seeds.
Yes, very, very good. Yes, that is exciting. And that's the whole cycle. It's a cycle,
Mm-hmm.
where you are given the seeds, however you got the seeds, and now you are planting the seeds. You're actually going through the process of planting it. You're not just saying, "Oh, I got seeds," and putting them away and not utilizing, but you're utilizing them. You're actually planting them, putting them in
Mm-hmm.
the ground. They are now producing for you. Now you have your you're multiplying them, because now they started to multiply. There's such an abundance. The increase is
Mm-hmm.
so great that you end up
Yeah.
having to share it with others. But then also, I love the fact too that you are using it in your cooking. Francesca, we do appreciate you. We thank you so much for sharing your excitement and your joy, of your tomato plants, and just growing in this, just growing your family with such great, wonderful food and so forth. I need to harvest these collard greens before the bugs get them. But then I wanted to show you too that my kale here is actually growing some fresh leaves. And also in here, I planted the cucumbers. And look at that beautiful cucumber that I'm going to harvest right now. So as we go in there, look at that beautiful cucumber. Wow, we're going to have this for lunch. That is for sure. Yeah, and just following the vine, I'm just seeing if there are any others. The only problem is that the green color of the cucumber is hard to see because it is so much the color of the leaves. So if you don't see that, oh, look at that snail on my thing here. I'm going to kill that. Wow. Yeah, so as you can see, the cucumbers are coming up here and they're trailing. And then now I have the kale. Actually, this kale is from last year and it is re-blooming. And the leaves are really good. I've already gathered some of this kale. And we're going to have that with our lunch. But this is what I am so excited about, is this collard greens that I need to harvest. Now, these leaves in the center are much more tender, but the leaves on the outer parts are good too, but I'll use them to stew down and add to meals. And they're looking very good. Some of the lower leaves here, I'm going to come in here and move those leaves, but these upper leaves are beautiful. So here I also have my mint, and I also have tomatoes growing here. Enjoy this harvest to table. I also want to show you this. This is the cinnamon basil. It's going to flower, and I want to save those seeds. I planted some in the ground as well as in a pot. And then I have here, this is oregano. It's growing as well. So this is my harvest for this morning, and we're going to take it from garden to table along with the zucchini. I'm going to create a beautiful dinner for us today with a tomato, cucumber, and some collard green and kale leaves salad. Look at the garden. So beautiful. Let me stop. if you desire a born-again experience and relationship with God, then just pray with me. Heavenly Father, I believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and right now I ask Jesus to come and sit on the throne of my heart and to be Lord of my life. Amen.